While planning my child's first birthday, my husband's family took over everything, saying, "We've already hired our photographer. Yours isn't professional enough." My husband added, "Let them handle it, babe." I picked up the contract I had paid $1,200 for and said, "Then you better call her yourself and explain why your mother fired her without my permission." He looked terrified. "There's something about your child's first birthday that feels bigger than it should. It's not just a party. It's a whole ceremony, a milestone for surviving sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and the complete undoing of who you thought you were before parenthood hit you like a freight train." At least, that's how it felt to me. I'm Danielle Foster, 34 years old, elementary school teacher in Charleston, South Carolina. Married to Trevor Foster for almost 6 years. We lived a quiet life, the kind with Sunday morning pancakes, mismatched socks, and more coffee than was probably healthy. When our son, Jonah, turned 1, I wanted to celebrate it right. Nothing fancy, just a small backyard party, close family, a few friends, homemade decorations, a local photographer I had carefully chosen after weeks of searching. Simple. Meaningful. But nothing, and I mean nothing, with Trevor's family ever stayed simple. It started small, the way these things always do. Trevor's mother, Susan, called 2 weeks before the party. "I was thinking," she said sweetly, "we should do matching outfits for the family photos. You know, blue and khaki. Classic." I smiled tightly into the phone. "That's thoughtful, Susan," I said. "But I was hoping to just let everyone wear what they're comfortable in." There was a pause, just long enough to make it awkward. "Of course," she said, her voice tight. Your party. Your party." The words sounded wrong even as she said them. A few days later, I got a group text from Susan, including Trevor's 2 sisters, Lisa and Fiona. "Susan, we've booked the photographer for the party. She's fantastic." I stared at the message, confused. I had already hired someone, a local woman named Elise, who specialized in family sessions. I had signed a contract, paid a deposit. Elise had even come by the house to meet Jonah, so he'd feel comfortable on the day. I texted back carefully. I already hired Elise a month ago. I signed a contract and everything." Susan, "Oh, we talked to Elise. She's fine with it. Our photographer is a professional. It's for the best, honey." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Talked to Elise? Without my permission? When Trevor got home that night, I was sitting at the kitchen table, the printed contract spread out in front of me. He kissed the top of my head absently and grabbed a beer from the fridge. I turned to look at him, holding up the paper. "Did you know your mother fired our photographer?" He blinked at me, bottle halfway to his lips. "What?" "No. She thought it would be easier if they handled it." I set the paper down carefully. "I signed a contract, Trevor. I paid a deposit. I spent weeks finding someone we liked." He scratched the back of his neck, looking uncomfortable. "Come on, babe. It's not a big deal. Let them handle it. Less stress for you, right?" I stared at him. For a second, I couldn't even find the words. Less stress for me. Right. Because clearly, nothing says stress-free like having every decision steamrolled by someone who thought my choices weren't good enough. I picked up the contract slowly, folded it neatly, and held it out to him. "Then you better call her yourself," I said, my voice low and steady. "And explain why your mother fired her without my permission." His face drained of color. "Babe, no," I said, standing up. "You fix it." He looked terrified. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't let myself see before. Trevor wasn't just bad at setting boundaries. He didn't want to set them. Because it was easier for him if I was the one who got steamrolled. If I was the one who sucked it up, smiled, and let his family run the show. They tell you the first birthday is for the parents more than the kid. At first, I laughed it off. But as I stood there that day, clutching the contract for a photographer I had spent hours, days, carefully picking out, while my husband's family hijacked everything I had planned, it didn't feel funny at all. It felt like a slow unraveling. 1,000 tiny cuts leading to a single moment where you finally bleed out. My name's Danielle Foster, 34 years old. I teach 3rd grade at a public school in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm married to Trevor Foster, or was, depending on how this whole story unfolds. And up until that day, I thought I could deal with his family's pushy, overbearing ways. I thought wrong. The plan was simple. A backyard party. Some balloons, a few close friends, family, nothing over the top. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just wanted it to be a day Jonah, our son, could look back on one day through pictures and feel the love that surrounded him. I spent hours picking the theme, soft pastels, cute little woodland creatures, nothing too loud. I even found a local photographer, Elise, who specialized in family portraits, someone gentle and patient who knew how to work with fussy toddlers and stressed-out moms. When I showed Trevor the sample albums Elise had sent over, he barely glanced at them, nodding absently while scrolling through his phone. Typical. But I shrugged it off. He wasn't a details guy. That was fine. Or at least, it used to be. About 2 weeks before the party, the text started. First from Susan, Trevor's mother. Susan, thinking of getting matching shirts for the family photos. Navy and white? Very classic. I responded politely. Me. Thanks, Susan. I was thinking of letting everyone just wear whatever they're comfortable in. 15 minutes later, a reply. Susan, maybe reconsider. We want the photos to look good. We want. Not me. Not Trevor. We. 2 days after that, a group chat popped up. Susan, Trevor's sisters Lisa and Fiona, and me. Susan, good news. We booked the photographer. Can't wait for you to meet her. She's the best. I stared at the screen. Booked? I already had a lease. I had signed a contract. Paid a $1,200 deposit. Made arrangements for timing and setup. I replied carefully, holding back the growing knot of anger in my stomach. Me, I already hired a lease. She's confirmed. Lisa chimed in immediately. Lisa, we talked to her. She said she understood. Our photographer's been doing weddings for years. Much more professional. Talked to her. Without my knowledge. Without my permission. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly. I called Elise immediately. Hey, Danielle, she answered, bright and cheerful. Hi, Elise. I heard you spoke with my husband's family. There was a pause. Long enough to confirm my worst fear. Yeah, she said, voice softer now. I got a call from a woman saying you had changed your mind, that you'd found someone else. I didn't, I said, my voice shaking. I'm so sorry, she said immediately. I didn't want to cause any trouble. I didn't know who to believe. I closed my eyes, pressing my fingers against my forehead. No, I said. It's not your fault. I'll make this right. When Trevor walked through the door that night, I was ready. The contract was laid out on the kitchen table, right next to the email receipt for the deposit. He breezed into the kitchen, dropping his bag by the door, grabbing a soda from the fridge like nothing was wrong. Hey, babe, he said casually. I didn't answer right away. When he turned and saw me standing there, arms crossed, face hard, he faltered. What's up? He asked. I picked up the contract, held it between 2 fingers like it was something dirty. Did you know your mother fired our photographer? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. His eyes flickered, guilt, panic, before he covered it with a shrug. Babe, come on. It's not a big deal. They were just trying to help. I stared at him. They were trying to help, I repeated flatly. He nodded, shifting his weight like a little boy caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Yeah. I mean, less stress for you, right? Let them handle it. Less stress. He said it so easily. Like my stress wasn't caused by them hijacking everything I cared about. I took a deep breath, held it until my lungs ached, and let it out slowly. I picked up the contract, walked over to him, and pressed it into his hands. Then you better call Elise yourself, I said quietly. And explain to her why your mother fired her without my permission. His face turned gray. Babe, no, I said, stepping back. You fix it. He opened his mouth, closed it again, and looked down at the paper like it might catch fire. For a long, long moment we stood there in silence. And in that silence, 1,000 realizations hit me all at once. Trevor would always choose the path of least resistance. Trevor would always choose them. Trevor would never choose me. Trevor stood there like a statue, the paper limp in his hands. I don't understand why you're making this such a big deal, he said finally, his voice tight, defensive. I stared at him, feeling something hollow and cold settle deep in my chest. You don't. I asked, my voice soft. He shook his head. It's just a party, Danny. One day. Who cares who takes the pictures? I swallowed hard, feeling the burn behind my eyes, but I refused to cry. It's not about the pictures, I said quietly. It's about the fact that you let them disrespect me. Again. And you don't even see it. Trevor scrubbed his hands over his face, frustrated. They just want things to be nice, he muttered. It's not personal. It's always personal, I snapped, my voice sharper now. They're not trying to help. They're trying to control everything. And you let them. He opened his mouth, but I wasn't finished. I spent weeks planning this, I said, my voice cracking just a little. While you shrugged and said, whatever you want, babe. And then the second they want something different, you just roll over. The kitchen felt too small, too hot. Max, our dog, slunk into the room, sensing the tension, his ears flattened against his head. Trevor dropped the contract onto the counter like it physically hurt him to hold it. "Fine," he said, his tone clipped. "I'll call her. I'll fix it." But it wasn't just about the photographer anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. And both of us knew it. The next day, the group chat blew up. "Susan, Danielle, we are just trying to make Jonah's day special. Fiona, you're being really difficult about this." Everyone agrees. "Lisa, Mom's just trying to help. Maybe relax a little?" Relax. That word again. Like my anger, my hurt, my frustration was just some silly little thing. Like if I were a good wife, a good mother, a good woman, I would smile and let them bulldoze me. I typed, then deleted, then typed again. Finally, I sent one short message. "Me. The party will go as planned. If you can't respect that, don't come." I turned my phone off after that. Trevor came home from work, dragging his feet like a kid headed to detention. "They're mad," he said as he dropped onto the couch. "I'm not surprised," I said, not looking up from my laptop. "They're family, Danny." I closed the laptop slowly and stared at him. "And what am I, Trevor?" He looked at me, opened his mouth, then shut it again. Exactly. The day of Jonah's party, the sky was bright and clear, the backyard strung with the little woodland decorations I had spent nights cutting out by hand. Elise showed up right on time, her camera slung over her shoulder, a soft smile on her face. "Ready to make some memories?" she asked, crouching down to say hi to Jonah, who babbled and drooled all over her hand. "More than ready," I said, smiling back. Guests trickled in, my parents, a few friends from work, Melanie and her husband with their twins. Not a single Whitmore. Not Trevor's mother. Not his sisters. Not even Trevor's father, who usually played the peacemaker. I wasn't surprised. I had made it clear, respect my decisions or stay away. They made their choice. Trevor spent most of the party hovering near the grill, flipping burgers in silence, his face tight. I barely noticed. I was too busy laughing with Jonah, watching him smash cake into his hair, posing for silly photos with my friends, letting Elise capture the kind of moments you didn't need a professional wedding photographer to appreciate. Real moments. Messy, beautiful ours. Later, after Jonah had finally crashed, exhausted and sticky and happy, I sat on the porch steps with Elise, flipping through a few of the photos she had already uploaded. "You did good, Mama," she said, bumping my shoulder gently. I smiled, tears stinging the corners of my eyes for the first time that day, but not from sadness. From pride. Trevor came outside after everyone had left, hands stuffed into his pockets, staring at the ground. "You made your point," he said quietly. I looked at him, at the man I had built a life with, and felt an ache deep in my chest. It wasn't about winning. It never had been. It was about being seen, being respected, being chosen. And maybe, just maybe, realizing that if someone couldn't choose you without conditions, they weren't worth being chosen by. I stayed sitting on the porch, running my fingers lightly over the edge of my coffee cup, feeling the cool breeze cut the leftover heat of the day. Trevor shifted from foot to foot behind me like he wanted me to say something, anything, that would make it easy for him to slip back into comfort. But I was tired of making things easy for him. Finally, I looked over my shoulder. "What point do you think I was trying to make?" I asked calmly. He looked caught off guard, like he hadn't expected to have to actually answer. "I don't know," he mumbled. "That you need control over everything?" I laughed, short, bitter. "It's not about control, Trevor," I said, setting the cup down. "It's about respect. About being treated like my opinion, like my role as Jonah's mother matters." He scrubbed a hand over his face, looking frustrated. "You're blowing this way out of proportion," he said. "It was just a party." I stood up then, slow and deliberate, brushing invisible dust from my jeans. "It's never just one thing," I said quietly. "It's everything." He opened his mouth, but I didn't let him interrupt. "It's every time your family pushed, and you stood there silent. Every time I said, 'This hurts me,' and you rolled your eyes. Every time you asked me to swallow it down so things would stay nice." I took a breath, steadying myself. "I'm tired, Trevor. I'm tired of making myself small so you don't have to be uncomfortable." He stared at me, his mouth working, but no sound came out. For the first time, I realized that maybe he wasn't the man I thought I married. Or maybe he was, and I just didn't want to see it before. The next morning, I packed a bag. Nothing dramatic, just a few essentials: clothes, toiletries, Jonah's favorite blanket, his stuffed fox. Trevor stood in the doorway of the bedroom, watching silently. "Where are you going?" he asked, his voice low. "To Melanie's," I said, zipping up the suitcase. Just for a few days, I added, but we both knew that was a lie. His hands clenched at his sides. This is insane, Danielle, he said. Over a party? I turned to face him fully. This isn't about the party, I said. This is about the fact that I cannot raise my son in a place where his mother's voice doesn't matter. He flinched just slightly. I hoisted the bag off the bed, adjusted it on my shoulder, and picked up Jonah from his crib. He stirred, blinking sleepily up at me, his tiny hand grabbing a fistful of my shirt. Bye, Trevor, I said, keeping my voice steady. He didn't try to stop me. Melanie opened the door in pajama pants and a coffee first, talk later t-shirt, her face going from confusion to alarm to fierce protectiveness in about 3 seconds flat. She took one look at Jonah tucked against my chest and the suitcase behind me and said, "Come in." No questions. No judgment. Just open arms. For the first few days, I floated. Numb. Going through the motions of feedings and diaper changes and story time without really being there. Melanie let me be. She stocked the fridge with easy meals, set fresh towels in the bathroom, and gave me space. And slowly, I started to feel something settle inside me. Not grief. Not anger. Something heavier. Something final. Trevor texted, of course. Trevor, we can fix this. Trevor, it's just stress. New baby stress. Family stress. Trevor, come home. I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I didn't have a home there anymore. One night, after Jonah finally fell asleep in the portable crib Melanie had set up in the guest room, I sat on the couch with her, nursing a cup of tea. You're doing the right thing, she said softly. I looked down into my cup, watching the steam curl into the air. It doesn't feel like it, I admitted. She bumped my knee with hers. That's because you're used to carrying everyone else's guilt, she said. Not yours. I blinked hard, the truth of it hitting deep. A week after I left, the final shift happened. I woke up in Melanie's spare room to the sound of Jonah babbling to himself in his crib, sunlight pooling across the hardwood floors. I stood there for a second, watching him. His tiny fingers tugged at his blanket, his big brown eyes blinking up at the world, trusting it to be kind. And it hit me like a tidal wave. I couldn't go back. Not just for me, but for him too. I wanted Jonah to grow up watching a mother who didn't shrink herself for anyone. A mother who fought for peace, not approval. A mother who chose her own voice, even when it shook. That afternoon, I called a lawyer. I didn't cry. I didn't hesitate. I just made the appointment and hung up the phone, feeling something inside me click firmly into place. Melanie cheered when I told her, hugging me so tight I almost dropped Jonah. It's about time you started choosing you, she said fiercely. I laughed, a watery, wobbly sound, but it was real. Trevor showed up the next evening. Melanie answered the door, blocking the frame with her whole 5'4" self. I just want to talk to her, he said, his voice tight. She glanced back at me. I nodded. I wasn't afraid of him. I wasn't even angry anymore. Just done. I stepped outside onto the porch, arms folded over my chest. He looked rough. Tired. Like a man who had just realized too late that comfort and loyalty aren't the same thing. You're really going through with this? He asked, his voice cracking. I nodded. You're throwing away our family over a fight? I shook my head slowly. No, Trevor. I'm saving it. Jonah deserves better than this, and so do I. He stared at me, breathing hard like he wanted to argue, to fight, to win. But there was nothing left to fight for. Not when respect was already gone. The divorce moved fast. No drawn-out drama. No screaming matches. Just signatures on paper, dividing what little we had. I kept the house, bought out his share with some help from my parents. I kept Max. I kept Jonah. Most importantly, I kept myself. I ran into Susan once, months later, at the grocery store. She spotted me in the produce aisle, her cart full of organic apples and disapproval. She marched over, lips tight. You ruined everything, she hissed under her breath. I smiled, calm and bright. No, Susan, I said softly. I finally fixed it. Then I turned my cart around and walked away, leaving her standing there, small and sputtering among the Granny Smiths. Life wasn't perfect after that. There were hard days. Long nights. Lonely moments when I missed the idea of the family I thought I had. But there were also Saturday mornings with Jonah curled up beside me, sticky with syrup from pancakes we made too early. There were afternoons chasing Max through the backyard, the sun warm on my face. There were slow, steady breaths in a house where every decision, every color on the walls, every picture on the shelves was mine. There was peace. Real, hard-earned peace. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. I stood on my porch one evening, Max dozing at my feet, Jonah giggling somewhere inside the house, and I realized something. I didn't need anyone's permission to build a life worth living. I just needed to give myself the chance. And I did.